Hegseth stumbles as Kelly forces a reality check that slices straight through the kind of polished talking points billion-dollar projects are usually wrapped in. The entire room felt at the moment Kelly spoke, because he didn't come in looking for a soundbite. He came in with one goal: expose whether this dazzling new missile defense dream could survive even the softest brush with real science. And the second he asked the question that actually mattered, you could practically see the gears grinding to a halt. It wasn't an ambush. It wasn't theatrical. It was precise. Kelly started with the kind of question that should have had a straightforward answer.
Mr. Secretary, I want to talk about the proposed Golden Dome missile defense system. There's a request to spend $25 billion in this year alone. First of all, is this system designed to intercept a full salvo attack?
Senator, it's a multi-layer system that would include different types of salvos. Obviously,
so it's not just Rogue Nation. Okay.
Well, it's meant to. Yes, it's not meant to be just one nation. It could be utilized in
against Russia and China, full salvo. So, what kind of reliability are you aiming to build into the system? Are we looking for something like 4 nines on intercept success? 99.99% reliability.
Obviously, you seek the highest possible. You begin with what you have and integrating those C2 networks and sensors, building up capabilities that are existing with an eye toward future capabilities that can come online as quickly as possible, not just ground-based, but space-based.
So against future capability too. So do you believe that we can build a system that can intercept all incoming threats? You think we could build that system? This is a very hard physics problem.
You would know as well as anybody, sir, how difficult this problem is, and that's why we put our best people on it. We think the American people deserve it.
So let me tell you what I think we're facing here. You're talking about hundreds of ICBMs launched simultaneously, varying trajectories, MIRVs, so multiple reentry vehicles, thousands of decoys, hypersonic glide vehicles, all at once. And considering what the future threat might be, it might even be more complicated than that. And you're proposing spending not just $25 billion, but upwards of, I think CBO estimated this at least $500 billion, other estimates $1 trillion. I am all for having a system that would work. I am not sure that the physics can get there on this. It's incredibly complicated. So I want to get to another issue that you're facing here. How much of the staff of the Office of the Director of Operational Test and Evaluation did you cut?
After collaboration, sir, with the service departments, the Joint Staff, and others, we identified that as a place where there were redundancies and multiple additional layers that were unnecessary.
I'll tell you what you cut. You cut
so
74%.
Most of it. That's what I was going to say.
Most of it. And was your decision to cut more than half of the Pentagon's testing and evaluation office staff driven in part by concerns about the office's plan to oversee testing of Golden Dome?
The concerns were not specific to Golden Dome, sir. It was years and years of delays unnecessarily based on redundancies in the decision-making process that the services, COCOMs, and the Joint Staff, together with OSD, identified as a logjam that was not helping the process.
To get the reliability we would need, you need something that's at 4 nines, 99.99% reliability with all these challenges. And you cut the staff of the people who are going to make sure this thing works before we make it operational, before we give it to the warfighters. You got to go back and take a look at this. But I also strongly encourage you to put together before we spend $25 billion or $175 billion or $563 billion or $1 trillion, put together a group of people to figure out if the physics will work. You could go down a road here and spend hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of the taxpayer money, get to the end, and we have a system that is not functional. That very well could happen. And you're doing this just because the president, and I understand your role as the Secretary of Defense. You got to execute what the president says. But this idea, might not be fully baked. And you can get in front of it now and figure out and and find out if you put the right physicists on this. And I'm not saying go to the big defense contractors. I'm going to scientists, and I know there's a questionable relationship with this administration and scientists, but go to some scientists, figure out what we would have to do to build a system, and then make smart decisions before we spend hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars.
Senator, we're doing that, leveraging existing technologies and not premising the project on aspirational technologies, what we can actually do, and would welcome.
Well, $25 billion in the first year is a lot of money. That's more than just figuring out if we have the ability to build a system that.
Can this system intercept a full nuclear salvo? Not a lone missile, not a staged test, not a clean and predictable launch path, an actual, real-world attack from a major adversary. Because that's the only scenario where such a system matters. If it can't survive that, then everything else is decoration. The response didn't come smoothly. Instead of clarity, Kelly got a vague reference to multi-layer integration, various capabilities, sensors, command networks, and future enhancements. It sounded complicated enough to impress someone who wasn't paying attention, but Kelly was paying attention. The more layered the answer became, the clearer it was that there wasn't a foundation under it. Kelly didn't blink. He tightened his focus and asked a question no system like this can afford to dodge. What reliability level are you aiming for? Are we talking about something like 99.99%? For nines, the kind of perfection that most technologies can't even dream of. But in missile defense, perfection isn't optional, it's survival. One warhead slipping through the cracks doesn't mean the system underperformed. It means devastation on a scale Americans aren't prepared to imagine. And then came the line that changed the entire tone of the exchange. A line that was delivered almost as a side note, but landed like a confession. This is a very hard physics problem. In that moment, the curtain lifted. Behind the polished language and the impressive budget numbers was a truth anyone with a background in spaceflight or advanced weapons testing already suspects. There are situations money can't brute force. There are threats no sensor network can cleanly organize. There are environments where the math simply doesn't care what a committee hopes to achieve. Kelly knows this better than most. He's lived inside the unforgiving realm of physics, launching into orbit, landing aircraft on pitching carriers, running flight tests where one mistake is fatal. When he describes the real threat environment, he isn't theorizing. He's speaking from a lifetime of direct experience. So when he laid out the reality of a full-scale nuclear barrage, hundreds of missiles, each carrying multiple warheads, thousands of decoys, clouds of debris, hypersonic glide vehicles zigzagging unpredictably, it wasn't an exaggeration designed to scare anyone. It was the actual blueprint of what such a defense system would have to defeat. That's the part usually glossed over in press releases. People hear missile defense system and imagine something sleek and cinematic, a technological shield glowing in orbit. But that's not how missile defense works. Every missile, every warhead, every decoy has to be distinguished, tracked, targeted, intercepted, and destroyed. And it all has to happen in minutes. Even one failure doesn't just make the system look bad, it makes it useless. And yet, in the middle of proposing this colossal endeavor, one that depends entirely on flawless performance, the Pentagon cut more than half of the staff from the office responsible for testing whether any of this would work at all. Kelly didn't bring it up casually. He brought it up with the urgency of someone who understood what that cut meant. 74%. Gone. The explanation was bureaucratic, redundancies, delays, streamlining. But Kelly saw the contradiction immediately. You cannot build a defense system that must achieve near-perfect performance while simultaneously weakening the very oversight office responsible for validating that performance. You cannot demand reliability while removing the people whose job is to prove reliability. It's like announcing a new spaceship and then firing the engineers who inspect the engines. Kelly didn't accuse. He didn't throw insults. He simply held the facts up to the light. A trillion-dollar vision with a gutted testing apparatus is not a defense strategy. It's a gamble. A gamble that assumes everything will go right on the first try in the most high-pressure environment imaginable. No test pilot, no astronaut, no physicist would ever build a system that way. Only politics would. And politics was everywhere in this proposal. A $25 billion request in the first year alone, escalating into hundreds of billions. possibly climbing toward a trillion. Kelly laid out the numbers calmly, but the message was unmistakable. You can pour money into this system year after year, decade after decade, and still reach the end only to discover a painful truth. It may never have been achievable in the first place. Not because people lacked talent, not because there wasn't enough effort, but because the underlying architecture of nuclear threat environments, the physics of hypersonic vehicles, the complexity of decoy clouds, and the speed of modern strategic weapons may make the idea of a perfect intercept system fundamentally unattainable. Kelly wasn't trying to kill the dream. He was trying to anchor it to reality. He urged something simple yet radical for Washington. Pause and bring in independent scientists. Not contractors with financial incentives. Not political allies. Scientists whose only loyalty is to the truth of what is possible and what is not. That suggestion alone revealed how far the proposal had drifted from scientific scrutiny. If the physics can't support the mission, then the mission isn't visionary, it's fantasy. And when fantasy is funded as policy, the cost isn't just financial. It's strategic. It's human. It's catastrophic if leaders assume a protection that doesn't exist. That Kelly's warning wasn't just about wasting money. It was about building a shield out of assumptions. A shield that might fail the moment it's needed most. A shield that could convince policymakers they're safer than they really are. That false confidence is more dangerous than having no shield at all. Because at least when everyone knows you're vulnerable, strategies are built on caution. When leaders believe they're protected, they make moves they otherwise wouldn't dare. Moves that could ignite conflicts no defense system could possibly contain. The weight of Kelly's experience hung over every sentence. This wasn't a senator poking holes in a budget sheet. This was someone who spent his life navigating the razor's edge between human ambition and the laws of nature. Someone who knows firsthand that nature always sets the terms. And no matter how much money you throw at it, those terms don't bend. Throughout the exchange, the contrast between Kelly and Hegseth grew sharper. Kelly grounded his questions in data, feasibility, and physics. Hegseth leaned on broad statements, aspirational language, and descriptions of future integration. It felt like one side was discussing the real world, while the other was pitching a brochure. And the most revealing moment came not from what was said, but from what wasn't. The question Kelly began with, the one that started this cascade, never received a direct yes. Never received a confident claim. It was dodged, rephrased, surrounded by terminology, but never answered. Because answering it honestly would have meant admitting something political leaders aren't eager to say out loud. The system might not be able to do what it's being sold to do. And that's why Kelly's presence in this hearing mattered so much. He forced the conversation away from fantasy and back toward physics. He reminded everyone watching that national security isn't strengthened by ambitious promises. It's strengthened by achievable ones. That complex systems cannot be willed into existence through enthusiasm or pressure. They must be engineered, tested, validated, and proven. Something this proposal was racing ahead of without stopping to confirm whether the fundamentals were even possible. By the end of the hearing, the message wasn't subtle. You can keep sprinting down this road, pouring hundreds of billions into a shield that may never work, hoping each new layer solves the basic limitations of the last. Or you can stop now, consult the people who understand the limits of technology at this scale, and make decisions grounded in evidence, not in momentum. Kelly didn't raise his voice to deliver that warning. He didn't need to. The strength of his argument came from clarity, expertise, and a refusal to let optimism rewrite the laws of physics. And as Hegseth stumbled through each layer of explanation, it became obvious that Kelly's calm pressure had revealed the cracks in the foundation. This wasn't a debate. It was a reality check, a reminder that national defense cannot be built on wishful thinking, and a signal that behind every grand promise lies a question that must be answered before any money is spent. Does the science actually work? If you want more deep-dive breakdowns like this, moments where political theater gets peeled away and the real truth comes to the surface, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next investigation.